Basu Godin Notebook. 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 Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new edition of the Basu and Godin Notebook Halloween edition. I am Marc-Antoine Godin, live from Toronto.
I should have been in costume. I can't believe I'm not in costume. I'm disappointed in myself. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, so disappointed. I know.
Very disappointed. Yes.
Yeah, but you're always dressed the same anyway.
Yes,
So-
exactly. I'm the anti-Halloween person. Yes. So where in the world is Marc-Antoine Godin? He's in
Yeah.
Toronto.
Toronto, because
Following the
I'm
World
still covering
Series?
the Montreal the World Series. Yeah,
The Montreal Series. Yes.
yeah, the World Series.
World Series. So you've arrived in Toronto. We're going to get to the hockey in a sec. I just want to. I'd like to hear about your adventures in Los Angeles and what it's been like covering this series. The whole country is enthralled by it.
Yeah.
You have a front row seat to it. How's it been?
Well, it's not exactly a front row seat. It's deep
I
in
know.
left field.
I know, but you know,
but
are you
it's-
in the auxiliary? Are you in the auxiliary press box?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nice with all the.
I know.
rejects. Yes,
But it's I mean it's being in the auxiliary press room or press box in California is not an issue because California in October is still perfectly comfortable. No, it's been a great World Series so far. The Jays are I mean, they could not play any better. Overall, you know, they're going to lose some games against an opponent like the Dodgers, but man, are they relentless. And it's really, it's a bit of a cliche when it comes to a Canadian team to say, oh, they've got a hockey mentality, but there's a little bit of that in the way that they're grinding their opponent and they're plucky in a way.
That is totally cliche. You're right.
Yeah.
100%.
I know, but there's a mindset where there's an aggressiveness to their game, to their play. They're very I don't know. They're very aware right now, and you can feel as how the Dodgers are puzzled right now by what seemed to work for them all year round. All of a sudden, you know, the light has gone out for
So
certain players.
What was your favorite interaction as far as a media member covering the World Series, but you're like on the, you know, you're not one of the core baseball people covering it. So did you have a favorite interaction that you had over your time in LA? Did you talk to a certain player that you enjoyed or?
Not particularly, no, because I'm not a broadcaster. I haven't had any like one-on-ones. It's been very, press conferences settings, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
right. Okay.
yeah. So I'm discovering those guys, those athletes, because I mean, I used to be a big baseball fan, but it's not my forte as much as it used to be back in the day.
Right.
But it's
Those
great.
who don't know, Marc-Antoine and I met covering the Expos at Olympic Stadium. Longtime listeners would know that, but you know, for the newer crowd,
Yeah.
this brings us back to our root. Well, not me, I'm not covering it, but this brings you back to your sports journalism route. So,
And I bumped into the guy who was the MLB.com correspondent covering the Montreal Expos in the last couple of years, Bill Ladson. So it was great seeing him after all these years. So no, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And now, I mean, I'm sure that the atmosphere at Rogers Centers will be electric. Dodger Stadium, a little bit subdued. I was I was expecting a place that would be rocking a bit more than that. For sure, there's a lot of people, over 50,000, but there are a few seats available each of those games, surprisingly.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, you know, sometimes it feels almost like a crowd that's expecting to win, and they don't right now.
Well, I think the Jays did a lot to take the crowd out of it, at least in the last two games. So I mean, that's they had a big part to play in that for sure, especially the last game when you get two homers after the first
three pitches. So. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So enough about baseball, though.
Yeah.
Have you been paying attention to the Montreal Canadiens while you've been busy?
I have. I've been watching the games. Been watching the games. Don't worry about it. So I know what I'm talking about. But you've been with them, so that's even more useful.
I
So
guess so. Yes. Yeah. So they complete a road trip. And I think it's fair. Like you look at the record, and Cole Caulfield keeps scoring overtime goals, and they come up clutch and everything. But I think there's some. I wouldn't even call it concern, but there's some acknowledgement from Martin St. Louis that they're still doing. They're winning despite having certain, well, not certain bad habits, frankly, something that's existed all season, which is an inability to play a 60-minute game. And it used to be the second period that was the issue. Now it's the third period that's become the issue. At some point, I guess the first period's going to become an issue, but like you would think that at some point, the full 60-minute, the dream of a full 60-minute effort will come. I kind of maintain that their two best 60-minute efforts of the year were basically the two games they lost, or two of the games they lost, the Oilers game and the Leafs game. They have the game in Vancouver on Saturday, or no, sorry. Yeah, that was Saturday. Gosh, it's been a long week already. Game in Vancouver on Saturday. Obviously, they give up a 6-on-5 goal. Game in Seattle, they give up 3 goals in the third period, including a 6-on, none of which came at 5-on-5. Actually, they give up a goal on the power play. They give up a goal at 4-on-4, and they give up a goal at 6-on-5. I felt kind of bad after the game, and I almost never do this, right? But Nick Suzuki was there. All the cameras were set up, and no one was saying anything. And it went on for a few seconds. And then, so I decided to ask the first question. My first question is like, you get all concerned about these blown third period leads, but they had just won in overtime. They were all like pumped up. And here I am, Debbie Downer, kind of ruining. And I think Nick was kind of put off. Like he was expecting like a question about Cole Caulfield or a question about how well you're doing in overtime. But I think
have you seen our record, stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. How great the record is. But he did acknowledge that he's like, why have we had a lot? And I'm like, there's been a few. There's been a few issues in the third holding leads. It's not something that. And so he kind of acknowledged they got to clean some stuff up, and especially today after practice, that was definitely a topic. But that's being a real downer, for a team that leads its division. That's one of the top teams in the league.
But it's a good problem to have, because it means that the team is in a new chapter of their development. If you have to learn how to defend a lead in the third period, it's because now you have it. And for years, this is a team that did not have the habit of having a lead in the third period. If they wanted to, if they wanted to grab a win here and there, they had to find a way to come back in the third periods and rally and come from behind. Now it's a different challenge, and that whole thing about learning how to play with the lead, to me, it's really it's harder than it seems, because there's a line that a team has to find between, because everybody knows that if you take your foot off the gas and you try to defend and you protect your lead, if you protect your lead and start playing more on your heels, it's going to come back and bite you. So teams don't want to do that. So they want to stay hungry. They want to keep attacking, because the best defensive is offense. But there's a balance to be struck there between continuing to do what you've done so well in the first 2 periods, but by at the same time remaining aware of the clock, remaining aware of the score, and not getting overconfident just because you're up 3-0, and taking back decisions. So I think that between continuing to go on offense and make sure that you defend well, it's a harder line to find than people think, because you might go on one end of the spectrum or on the other, and it's actually somewhere in between that makes you a team that's effective at protecting a lead. And I can't blame them to having to figure out how this whole thing works, because they have not been a team that's done a lot of that. But still, I mean, since the beginning of the season, there's 2 teams who had leads in the third period and lost 2 games: the Calgary Flames and the Montreal Canadiens. and those are stats from dating on from Thursday night, October 30th. So, because that's when we're recording this episode, so there it might change on Thursday night. But so the Canadiens lost 2 games. They took a few more to overtime, but this is something that can be cleaned up. So
It can be, and I think Marty actually put it really well today because you look at the Canadiens have gotten out of their October schedule, and now they're heading into a November schedule. We talked about how it was easy-ish in October, right? Which I don't think is entirely fair anymore. Now that you look back on it, Detroit, ever since Montreal played them, went on a tear. They've had, there's a few other teams that they've played that aren't doing too bad, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year. Now they're hitting like extremely home-heavy part of their schedule, right? And so it's kind of another phase where I think they play 8 of their next 10 at home. And without Caden Gooley, that's actually a big factor. Like the fact that they were on the road, they don't have Caden Gooley. They're kind of apprehensive of putting Arbor Jacki out there in certain situations. And so they don't have to worry as much about that. And they can just let their defense kind of flow a little bit more. But, you look at their numbers at this point, and, the possession numbers are pretty low. They're below 50% in terms of shot attempt percentage. Expected goals for percentage is below 50%. It's not the end all be all. It doesn't mean everything, but it is an indicator that you're not running at an optimal level. Let's say you'd like both those numbers to be above 50%. So today, I asked Marty, like, where does puck possession rank in the things that you look at to see if your team is playing well? And I don't mean the puck possession numbers that we're looking at. I meant actual puck possession, and obviously they have metrics that we don't get, but he referred to offensive zone time as something that he looks at. And when you're protecting a lead, like he said that basically, I'm paraphrasing, but basically said, like, I often like our offensive zone time. I found that we've had trouble turning that offensive zone time into quality opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's getting better. And I would agree with him in that sense that was more of a problem earlier in the season, and it's become less of a problem as the season's kind of gone along somewhat. But the interesting part was that in the third period, when they're protecting those leads, he doesn't mind having offensive zone time without the scoring chances. The more offensive zone time, the better. And frankly, if it's between maintaining offensive zone time or taking a tiny risk to create a chance, he'd rather maintain the offensive zone time. So those kind of clicks for players, those signals that, okay, we're now at a phase where, or now we're in a phase of the game where, obviously we're up 3 goals. It's midway through, or approaching midway through the third period. Like, we just got to keep our foot on the gas, but don't floor it, I guess, or don't try to break any speed limits or anything, but still go fast, but don't go too fast. So, they're looking for that balance. And I think it's fair to say, like, I looked it up on Sunday night. So last season, the Canadiens entered the third period leading 26 times, and there were only 3 teams in the whole league who had fewer second intermission leads than the Canadiens. So, after the game in Vancouver, Mike Matheson said, we weren't in this situation a whole lot last year. We're learning how to deal with it. They had a 2-goal lead in Vancouver that became a 1-goal lead. They wound up hanging on to win that game. Marty also was not pleased with how they managed that third period, up 2 goals. Then obviously against Seattle, they do win in overtime, but Marty was again not pleased with how they managed that situation. But he also said, I don't think we had too many situations ever with this group where we were up 3 with 10 minutes left. Like, it hasn't happened to us very often. And the reality is that teams play different when they're down 3 than they do when they're down 1, or they're, or just down. Like, it's when you're down 3, just kind of all systems get thrown out the window, and it's a bit crazy. So, I think it would have been silly to expect this team to not have things they need to learn. The fact is that they've had a lot of things they need to learn so far. And they're sitting with the record that they're sitting with, like they haven't had to be even close to perfect to get this record.
No,
there's been some luck involved for sure, but there's also been some timely goals. There's been some clutch performances in overtime. Frankly, the combination of Hutson, Suzuki, and Caufield, like, is among the scarier three people combination. Like obviously you have McCarr, McKinnon. I guess it would be Natchez who plays for them on the 3-on-3. Edmonton could throw at Bouchard, McDavid, and Draisaitl. Like there's a lot of scary 3-person starting combinations that you can come up with in overtime. I think Suzuki, Caufield, and Hutson, especially if Suzuki wins the opening draw, is because we've seen it a few times now where they've won the opening faceoff and they've just had the puck the whole time and they've scored. It's happened twice, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely happened in Seattle. Seattle never touched the puck. And the other one was, it's escaping me, but it's happened a few times. It's happened a couple of times where that opening trio just ends the game right off the bat. The one thing that they need to keep in mind is that regulation wins is the first tiebreak. And so if you could put a team away in regulation, it's great to get the 2 points out of overtime, but it's not as good as getting the 2 points in regulation because those regulation wins are going to be valuable later on this season. And when you have a chance to bank one, you would be better to do so when you have the opportunity.
Well, of all the teams, the Canadiens have given up the second most goals in the league in the third period. 18 goals against. So this is where...
Only 14-4. They're a -4 in the third period. So it's...
I guess that's where the adjustment can come. But you're right. I mean, at the same time, I don't feel like this is a team that, even though it's a lot of goals, I don't feel like they're giving so many chances. I mean, their overall defensive game is pretty sound. And it's...
5-on-5, yeah.
And I'd be looking more, when you talk about expected goals and chances and whatnot, I'd look more on the offense than on the defense to balance this out, because it's true that it's getting better and there's more conversion from zone time to real chances. But at the same time, shot volume remains a problem. During this 4-game road trip, their highest shot total was 28.
Yeah.
It's in 4 games. I mean, I think you can do better than that. So, and there's from one game to the next, it won't always be the same secondary scoring, the same second line that showcases itself. But at least one thing's for sure is that the Suzuki line, night after night after night, they're always there. Man, they've become the cream of the crop. At the NHL level, you look, they're among like the top 5 best lines in hockey. You mentioning McKinnon and Natchez, they have this line with Arturi Lehkonen.
Mm-hmm.
This line is lethal this season so far. You've got some lines in Utah, strangely enough, that are that have become really powerhouses. The Hayton line with Keller and Schmaltz, and you got also the Cooley line with Gunther. And who's completing the other one though? Escapes me.
Peterka.
Peterka. There you go. So those, I mean, but the Suzuki line is really among the elite now, and this is new territory for Montreal, and it's also credit to the fact that those guys, all 3 of them, Suzuki, Caufield, Slafkovsky, keep getting better. I remember we used to talk on this podcast a couple of years ago how that line would spend too much time in their own end, and they wasted so much energy defending. Then at the end of their shift, they could not counterattack. They just needed to get the puck out of the zone and change. It's not happening anymore. So because defensively they've gotten so much better that they barely spend any time in their own end.
Yeah, no, it's changed drastically. I agree. And I think it's largely due to the fact that Caufield's all-around game and Slafkovsky's all-around game has caught up to Suzuki's all-around game. You can't just be one guy who knows what he's doing on both sides of the puck and hope to have success. You need the other guys with you to play that style of game, and his line mates are. And we talked a lot about Slafkovsky's off puck stuff and the things that he does to facilitate things for that line. And he's getting goal production now. Like he's scoring. They might be power play goals, but he doesn't care. That's the number next to in the G column still counts for something, and so he's already off to a way better start than he was, just statistically speaking, than he was than he ever has really in the NHL. But Caufield's just gone to another level in terms of what he does to make it so that they can get the puck back and to make it so that they don't get scored on. Statistically speaking, they're tremendous. They're really quite remarkable in the sense that they produce offense. They don't give up a whole lot. They're the best of both worlds in many ways, and yeah, it has been a long time coming, and it's also credit to just them figuring it out together. It's also been a while, like we've been saying, like when are the Canadiens can have a line where you don't have to question who's on the line.
Mm-hmm.
They have that line now. Now you could, I guess, at some point, someone's gonna suggest putting Demidov on that line instead of Slafkovsky. I'm sure. It would be a total misunderstanding of how that line works and why it works and the role that Slafkovsky plays in making it work to suggest that. But the reality is that when that gets suggested, it's going to be because the line that Demidov is on at whatever point that is will be seen as insufficient or ineffective or just not matching his level of talent, which we're almost there now in terms of the actual version of the Canadiens with this guy, because everyone was clamoring for Ivan Demidov to be on power play 1. It took Marty 8 games to acquiesce. It didn't take the 20 games it took for Lane Hutson. And now I don't know the extent to which there's outside clamor, but Demidov's line with Oliver Kapanen and Alex Newhook is going extremely well. They're also one of the better lines in the league in terms of like they've gotten up to even in terms of expected goals for percentage, like all these numbers that were totally cratering. Mm-hmm. But I watch Kirby Dach and Zach Blodzik play with Joe Veleno on that road trip, and especially against Seattle, but even against Vancouver, like Kirby Dach is starting to turn a corner a little bit. Like he's starting to do more things on the ice that make you wonder, like, is there more there? Is there more coming? And especially the move he made around Brandon Montour.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
Joey Daccord, an incredible save, and Kirby Dach is staring at the sky. But to me, I was like, oh, okay, that means that's something. That's something that shows a growing level of confidence, a growing level of comfort, and a growing drive. And it's just hard not to look at the combination of Dach and Blodzik and not see a pretty seamless fit with Ivan Demidov next to them at some point. We're not going to start the campaign for it yet. We're not going to start peppering Marty with questions about it, but it just seems obvious that at some point that is something we're trying.
Yeah, well, it's because the Kapanen line remains a high event line. They produce quite a bit, but they give up still a lot. It's a little bit more. It's a little quieter on the Dach line, but I think that as it currently stands, I mean, Dach is getting better. You're right about that, but I feel as though Blodzik is a little bit lost in the shuffle, and you can do better than Joe Veleno next to them, and that's. Ultimately, I think that...
And Joe Veleno's been great, to be clear. He's been very good.
He is, but he is who he is, and it's more
who he is,
limited role, I would suppose, supporting role. But if you try to look longer term and try to develop an offense that's going to be more consistent and will enable the team to really come in waves, one after the other, I think you need to have maximum impact on that second line. And if Dach is truly about to break out, and Blodzik, we know what he's capable of doing, to me, it's almost a no-brainer at some point to put Demidov with them, because you could put Veleno with Newhook and Kapanen, and that line would still be, I think, quite effective. It would be because if you expect... I think that Demidov is going to be like whoever's going to be on Demidov's line will be the second line.
Yeah,
ultimately. But
I think
to
that's
ask,
already the case right now.
but asking that out of a rookie centerman and have two rookies on that line, it's a bit much. It's and as good as Kapanen has been on both sides of the puck, and as good as Newhook is progressing too, because I think that he's becoming also a better player. Uh, your best bet currently is to put Demidov with Doc and Bolduc. Now, the fact that the Canadians generally are winning games, there's a certain aspect of if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But down the line, I think that this is something that will need to happen, because you can see, you mentioned the fact that the power play has changed since Demidov was put on the first power play. I mean, they didn't have a ton of chances during their 4-game road trip, but there was still 5 goals in 9 attempts. There
Yeah.
were they gave up 17 power play opportunities to the other team. That's a problem in itself. But when they had power plays of their own, they really capitalized on it, and it's not just because of Demidov, but it's a lot more than just a coincidence. Now, 5-on-5, he's been, for some statistical reason, it seems as though uh, when he's on the ice, he gives up less chances than both Newhook and Kapanen. So I don't know if there's something in the matchups, if he, if
He was
it's,
on the ice for the fewest expected goals against per 60 on the trip.
yeah, it's
Demidov.
it's unusual.
It is
So
unusual because Kapanen and Newhook aren't way down the list, but they're down the list.
yeah, so you have to, I think you have to look at that, but at the same time, I mean, Doc is not. It's not like, whoa, what are they waiting for? It's not setting the world on fire, but you're just, I guess everybody's hoping that that he's going to turn the corner in such a way that the Canadians, at least for the season, will say, okay, well, we have our order, we've got our line of center, and we're comfortable building around Doc. It's not
Well,
it's not yet happened, but at least we see glimpses of it.
well, I think in the same way that Marty wanted Doc to start the season with Bolduc and Gallagher to give him straight line players, that would help him. I think eventually, and frankly, soonish,
Mm.
um, having Demidov would also help him because it's gonna lead to him scoring goals, and what would help his confidence more than potting one? I mean, he literally looked up to the sky in desperation after that chance on Joey Decord, after making an incredible move. He clearly wants to be rewarded for what he's doing, and having Demidov on his line would help that. And it also just when you it's one of those decisions where it's a decision that makes sense now, but almost more so makes sense down the road. Like if Doc's going to be a player for you, obviously Demidov's going to be a player for you, and obviously Bodzuk's going to be a player for you. And if Doc sticks around, like this looks like the makings of a potential actual second line for this team for years to come, possibly. Um, why not give it a little runway, and why not see? I mean, I understand, and it's interesting when you say like don't mess with a winning formula. Like if the Canadians continue winning, which they're not going to continue winning at the pace they're currently on, but if they are a winning team generally,
Yeah.
you kind of have to mess with a winning lineup sometimes. If something's not going well, you're not going to wait to lose to change it. And that's kind of the mindset of a team that has trouble winning. But if you become a winning team, then you got to make the changes that you see fit, or that appear necessary at the time that they do, so that you can get better, so you can keep advancing. And I think Joe Veleno would be a perfect fit on a line with Kapanen and Newhook. It wouldn't be that big of a stretch for them. I think he would bring some I think needed size to that line. And Demidov would bring, obviously a huge boatload of skill to two guys who can finish plays, especially Bodzuk, who I agree has looked a little lost, and it doesn't appear to be a priority in any way, shape, or form, the way things have gone so far. So I think, yeah, at some point it's another one of those things that just seems obvious. But I can understand why Marty would be hesitant, just because he stuck with Newhook, Kapanen, and Demidov when it didn't look obvious that that was working, and he was being questioned about it, and he liked what he saw, and now he's coming out the other side, and the line is looking more and more effective. And I can understand why he would be like, well, I was patient with this line. I deserve the fruits of that patience now. Like, now is the time when that pays off.
Yeah,
But I look at Doc's improvement, and so by the same token, I would look at Doc's improvement and just be like, well, that deserves something. That tells me that maybe it's time to put Demidov with him and Bolduc, two guys who are more offensively gifted, to see what that would look like.
do you think that the fact that the Canadiens are playing 8 of their next 10 games at home could allow Marty to be more patient with those two lines, because he would have last change? And I mean, we've seen, I mean, the Kapanen line has been comfortable on the road, but I think that Demidov so far is even better at home. So, and a lot of guys usually are, but I understand your point about saying, well, don't wait until you start losing to make changes. But at the same time, coaches could say also, well, I believe in the setup that I currently have. We're winning games. I'm fully aware that we're not playing to the top of our capabilities, but every 2 points that we get buys me time, or buys the players time, to figure it out completely and raise their level. And so that's why when I say, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, it's more in that spirit. It's just, if he believes in those combinations, he has the luxury of time to let things play out favorably for them, especially at home.
I suppose so, yeah. But I also think there's a luxury in.
I'm playing devil's advocate here because
no, I know. I just feel like, yeah, he might have the luxury of time until he doesn't. Right? I mean, that's the thing. Is like when you're a winning team, and I'm not saying the Canadiens even are one yet. They've had a winning stretch. They're not a winning team yet. But when they become a winning team, you can't let those wins mask or cloud issues on your team. And you can't just lean on those wins and say, I'm not touching anything. I'm not doing anything. I just want to maintain what we're doing, because that'll be, oftentimes it'll be too late. Right. So it's a matter of finding a balance between continuity and proactive corrections, and not waiting for a loss, and just cutting things off at the pass. And so that's and listen, if you kept the Demidov, Kapanen, Newhook line together, it would make perfect sense, because they're playing well, they're doing well together. And in the same sense where I said, Doc, Bolduc, and Demidov could be the second line of the future. Like, who's to say that Kapanen, Demidov, Newhook couldn't be the second line of the future? Like, it could be, or Demidov, Kapanen, Bolduc. Who knows? But it's, Kapanen, I don't think can't be left out of that equation, right? Like, I don't think he has a 2C ceiling, but he might. It's possible. Who knows? Yeah. I don't know. But I think it's worth a shot. I just wanted to share one, while we're on the subject of Ivan Demidov, I just wanted to share a little, I guess, an anecdote from the road. That was funny to me and interesting. I shared it on TSN on Tuesday night, but for those who weren't up at 1 a.m. Eastern to watch it,
to watch your tie, to look at the color of your tie.
My tie. Oh, people saw it. People saw it. Zia, I've accepted. You tune in on Tuesday for my tie color, okay? And so, morning skate, optional skate, 3 people skate. Kapanen, Joe Veleno, and Lane Hutson, of course. Those 3 spend 45 minutes to an hour on the ice with Adam Nicholas at one end, Joshua Roy, Marc Delgaizo working with Sam Montembeault and Eric Raymond at the other end. Um, Adam Nicholas runs them through a series of drills, and one of which involves a player from one side passing to the other, takes a return pass, shoots, and then goes and does all these twirly things and whatever Adam Nicholas has them do. But at one point, Lane Hutson took that return pass and uncorked a one-timer that was like a rocket into the top of the net. It was really quite something.
Lane
I
Hutson.
was Lane Hutson, yes. I happened to be sitting there, like we were waiting. We're basically waiting for them to come off the ice so that we could talk to them. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to wait I'm just going to go watch them instead of standing in the hallway talking to our colleagues like a dummy. So I went over there to watch. And when Lane let go of that one timer, Adam Nicholas, first of all, screamed as loud as he could, like a big woo. And so it was so loud that the reporters back at the room heard it.
Yeah.
But and then he saw me, and my face must have been like, whoa. Like that was like, my face must have revealed that I'd never seen a shot like that from Lane Hutson before. So anyhow, Lane Hutson finally gets off the ice. He hadn't gotten up. We had spoken to Kapanen and Veleno, and we were done with both of them by the time Hutson got off the ice. And he gets off the ice. He does his scrum. And as we're leaving, I mentioned that one-timer, and huge smile comes across his face, like, heavy, huh? That was a heavy shot, huh? I was like, yeah, it was heavy. He's like, now I just got to get to a position to use it. I was like, you see? This is what, yes, exactly. Like, I'm like, that's a usable shot. Use that. And so he said, so I remind, like, this, if you recall last season, this was like an ongoing thing with me and Lane, like, why don't you shoot more? What's the matter? Like, you need to do that. And I asked him if he had actually had a conversation with Demidov about that, because Demidov doesn't shoot enough. He is now, we are 11 games in?
I think he's below a shot per game. He
is now, hang on. Yes, he is at 5-on-5, especially, but I should switch to stall situations, but he was at 9 shots on goal after 10 games. But yeah, he just does not have anywhere close to enough in terms of shots. It's Lane Hutson all over again. And so he has 10 shots in 11 games, 10 shots on goal, and he only has 30 shot attempts in 11 games. So that's less than 3 per game. So I said, Demidov seems to have the same issue you did last year. Like, have you talked to him about it? He's like, yeah, it's funny. He tells me I need to shoot all the time, and I tell him he needs to shoot all the time. So apparently they have this back and forth. And he's like, I always remind him that I have more shots on goal than him. But one thing he said was, the thing with Demidov is that every time he shoots, he wants it to go in. So if he's not convinced it's going to go in, he's not going to shoot it, which I feel is like a very old school kind of Russian mentality to have. Like, remember the old Soviets would just pass it around, like the famous game at the Forum, the New Year's Eve game, and they're just passing it around. The Canadiens don't, and then they wind up with like 15 shots on goal, but like 12 of them are scoring chances or whatever. Like, that apparently is kind of Demidov's MO, according to Lane. So when you're wondering why isn't Demidov shooting more, it's because he seems to think that shots are reserved for scoring chances, whereas he's still learning to realize that at the NHL level, a shot on goal is often made to create a scoring chance, to create a rebound, to create a tip, to create chaos, to do things that lead to scoring chances. And he's still not getting that. So Hutson kind of said he's working on that with him, but he's not exactly the guy who feels the most comfortable going up to Ivan Demidov and being like, hey, you should shoot more, when he himself should shoot more. But I should mention, while I have the numbers in front of me, Lane Hutson through 11 games has 14 shots on goal. So that's an improvement. He has 36 shot attempts, slightly more than Demidov, but they're kind of in the same boat. They have the puck on their stick a lot. Both of them could stand to shoot more, but if I had video of the one-timer I saw in Seattle before that game, you would be even more convinced that Lane Hutson should shoot the puck more often, because that was something that even he felt comfortable bragging about afterwards.
They're kids. though, huh? They're two
Oh,
youths. They're
they're
two
two youths.
youths.
Yes.
So, I mean, they'll grow into their game in that aspect, and I think it will eventually become more comfortable in shooting instead of, you know, deferring to teammates who could have
Or
other
each other. They're on
or
the
each
ice
other.
often. They're on the ice together so often. You know, the sequence we saw the other night when it was just back and forth, pass, 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 pass. We see it in practice. I saw it in practice today, where they were doing a drill together. You know, and the more we've mentioned this already, but the more Dobson and Matheson get a lot of minutes behind Suzuki, Caufield, and Slavkovsky, the more these two guys get on the ice together. And I'm telling you, man, 2 years from now, the stuff these guys are going to do on the ice together is going to be so bonkers crazy. Like it's just going to, you know, they they spend time in their hotel room together. Like they just spent, you know, the last 9 nights, they're roommates on the road and they talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're just two like hockey geeks who like just talk about hockey all the time. Like it's, and I can only imagine what happens in their hotel room when they're just chatting about the game or a certain situation or a play. Like they could have done this, or maybe we should have done that, or this and that. It's,
Mm.
you know, but the Canadiens are, whoever made the decision, I'm sure it was Marty, but maybe it wasn't. But whoever made the decision that these two were going to be roommates on the road deserves some kind of raise, because I think the best development that could happen on this team is these two guys
Spending as much time.
spending their free time talking about hockey together. It's like
Yeah.
it's just gonna be a good thing to come of this.
And also the fact that even though they're probably the two most gifted players on the Canadiens, and we both know that they're going to eventually rack up a lot of points. Hutson obviously already did last season. You know, up front, the Suzuki line sorts of shelters Demidov or makes it so that not too much is expected too soon out of him. And now
Plus,
on the back
he
end,
gets better matchups.
that's right.
Yeah.
And now on the back end, with Noah Dobson being there now, with that Dobson Matheson pairing, there's not that much pressure also on Hutson. So I think that it benefits those two kids to have enough good players around them that it's not too much too soon in terms of we know that you're talented, but you got to deliver. There's whatever they're cooking together, it can simmer. You know, it can be in the slow cooker for a little bit, and I think that in 2, 3, 4 years, and for years to come, it's going to be a treat. But it doesn't. Again, that's another luxury of time. You've got guys right now that are higher in the hierarchy, that are producing, that are delivering some quality minutes to the Canadiens, and so it enables them to progress, steadily. The two of them. I want to go back though to Suzuki and Caufield in particular, because it's we're entering November. Um, there's always this chatter about the Olympic teams, and for both of those guys, it was a question. We discussed it prior to the Four Nations. It seems as though Caulfield was always on the outside looking in because he was a goal scorer, and they thought that they have enough of that. Plus, he was an undersized winger and all that stuff. But now with him showing that he's so much more now than just a scoring winger, but also, I mean, one of the best scoring wingers in the NHL right now. But the fact that he's rounded out his game so much, it's going to be more and more difficult for Team USA to ignore him, especially when you've got guys who were at the Four Nations. And now you think of those guys and you say, well, okay, are these really our best options? You know, guys like Nelson, for example, or Chris Kreider.
Chris Kreider, yeah. I mean, the issue, I mean, you also have like Tage Thompson didn't go to Four Nations. Clayton Keller didn't go to Four Nations. Clayton Keller in particular, I think creates Logan Cooley didn't go to Four Nations. Like there's a lot of American options that were not on that team because they were trying to build a certain kind of team, right? There's a reason why Chris Kreider was there. I think Tage Thompson kind of they could have used him in that style of game. But they're trying to build a tough team to try and bully Canada. Basically, was their MO.
Mm.
So in that sense, Caufield's got a high bar, as does Cooley, as does Keller, as does all these smaller American forwards. But I mean, and frankly, the U.S. can look at that Four Nations tournament and who had tough tournaments for them. Adam Fox, smaller defenseman. Jack Hughes did not have a great tournament. Slight, small, skilled forward. It might lead them to think that we can't bring any of these guys. We can't. Well, I mean, Jack Hughes is going obviously, but it's maybe they'll double down on that need for that tougher style of player. But I mean, Cole Caulfield deserves a lot of credit for making it that much more difficult. Like, he's making it very hard, and there's not that much time left before they have to name their rosters. So he's doing himself. He's giving himself the best possible chance. I still don't like his chances of making the team, just because I don't see the U.S. brass changing their strategy or their priority. Like, I don't. If anything, I could see them doubling down on it and going more in that direction. But I think Caufield's made a great case for himself. And there's a lot of there are others that he's in competition with. And in Suzuki's case, I think Suzuki's helped himself tremendously, right? It would be hard. It would be really hard. Harder for Canada than it would be for the U.S. to leave Caufield off.
Yeah.
I think it would be very difficult for Canada to leave Nick Suzuki off this team at this point. Other than the fact that you have like Macklin Celebrini, who's off to a ridiculous start. Connor Bedard is off to a pretty good start. And these guys represent the future of Team Canada. And Canada, long time ago, did not bring Sidney Crosby to his first potential best on best tournament, but brought Drew Doughty to his first potential as an 18-year-old in Vancouver. But I think sometimes they tend to, I wouldn't say overthink, but they will definitely defer to an older, more experienced player as opposed to a second-year guy like Celebrini. But Suzuki's playing at such a level that, and he's been helped by the fact that the Blues are a bit of a mess. So Robert Thomas hasn't been able to put his best foot forward.
But Scheifele has been very good.
I don't think Suzuki's in competition with Scheifele. If Scheifele's going to go, he's going to take someone else's spot. Like, Scheifele is a scorer. There's no all-aroundedness, or at least not as much of an all-around nature to Scheifele's game. Like, you're not going to put Scheifele on a penalty kill, right? Like, Suzuki is competing with a certain profile of player who can kill penalties. He can fill it on the power play if needed. He can play further down the lineup. He can play with anyone. He can play on the wing. Play center. He's a versatile piece that you can play in basically any situation. Whereas Scheifele is clearly, to me, would have to be like a top six guy. Would have to be on the power play. He'd have to play an offensive role. So I don't think Scheifele is necessarily competing with Suzuki. And among those guys who fit that profile, I think he's competing with a guy like Cirelli, or
even Konechny.
Or even definitely Konechny. And frankly, if you were to take Konechny over him at this point, would be malpractice. So it's like
Well, I think that there's many better options. There are many better options than Konechny right now, but it doesn't, on the wing, it doesn't have to be Suzuki though, because they choose to bring, let's say, Tom Wilson, for example. He could take Konechny's spot, but this is one guy. It's probably the guy that's the most vulnerable compared to the Four Nations roster that we saw.
Yes, but I think Suzuki's put himself in a really good position, and it's credit to him, because just forget it's not even just the start. It's ever since the end of the Four Nations tournament last year. Like, if you go back, if you include that in the whole calculus, he's right up there. Like, he's second in the league in scoring since the end of Four Nations. He has 51 points in 36 games since the end of Four Nations. The only player in the league that has more points than him is David Pastrnak at 52. Next is Kucherov at 49. Crosby's at 47. Then McKinnon. Like, he is the top scoring Canadian player since the end of the Four Nations tournament, as of Thursday evening at 10:23 Eastern.
Right.
So, I mean, there it is. It's like, I mean, I don't know what else, you can't really say. There's not much else to say. And plus, he's doing all sorts of other things. And frankly, the Canadiens' record since the end of the Four Nations tournament is ridiculous. Plus, in 36 games, he's a plus 24.
Yeah, I know.
That also leads the league.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
He's plus 24 in 36 games since the return from Four Nations. That's crazy. Caufield is plus 19. Hutson is plus 19.
Yeah. So
wow,
no.
I just discovered this in real time. This is I hadn't looked at this in a while. Slavkovsky's a plus 17. He's got 26 points in 36 games. Not bad.
Yeah, and he's going to the Olympics. That's not an issue.
He's the only player who's already been named.
Yeah. No, but I think it's going to be one thing regarding Suzuki that's going to be interesting is, how we suspect that there's going to be a bias in favor of guys like Cirelli and Hagel because of John Cooper.
I think it's a fair assumption, frankly.
But at the same time, if the Tampa Bay Lightning is not a force until Christmas, will they still be as comfortable to bring those two guys or both guys? Maybe I could see them bringing Hagel, but Cirelli could be replaced by another sentiment, So it'll be interesting to see, because to me, I expect all three Lightning players. Obviously, Point is going to be there, but I still expect all three guys to be there, but I'm not taking it for granted just because of the way that the Lightning started their season. And that's another opportunity, another door that might open for Suzuki, apart from his own play that makes him extremely, legitimate to be at the Olympics right now.
Well, plus one guy who's a huge Nick Suzuki fan is John Cooper. He has never shied away from the fact that he has a great admiration for the way Nick Suzuki plays the game. And so I think one of the issues for Suzuki is he has not gone to the World Championships the last 2 years. And that's something that Doug Armstrong, who's the GM of the Olympic team, I think he puts a lot of, and the other Olympic team, the other members of that management team, they put a lot there. Macklin Celebrini helped himself by going to the World Championships, spending time with Sidney Crosby, spending time with Nathan McKinnon. It helps. But Suzuki's play is so above and beyond. He's making it so that shouldn't be a factor.
Yeah.
And he kind of knew that, deciding not to go each of the last 2 years. He kind of put that pressure on himself as a result. Like, he knew that he was going to have to make it so that would not be a factor. And he knew it would be, he knew it could be a factor, and he had to make it so it wasn't one. And he's done that by and large. Well, not even by and large. He's flat out done that. 51 points in 36 games since return from Four Nations is a bonkers number. It's just like absolutely crazy. It's well over 100-point pace. It's 1.42 points per game. That's an insane pace over 36 games. That's, so.
And it's a steadiness also. It's not as though he would rack up points one game, then he disappears another, and he comes back.
No, he's been a consistent force ever since then.
Well, that active 10th game point streak is really significant in itself. But yeah, to me, this really what serves the Canadiens the best. It's that line has been like I don't know how you say like clockwork, basically. So
yeah, they know what they're getting every night from that line. So yeah. Well, speaking of the Olympics, we should probably we've gone this long before talking about the goaltending situation, which is crazy. We should.
Yeah, but we touched on Montembeault in the previous episode.
We did, but I think it's significant that at practice on Thursday, Martin St. Louis just came right out and said Montembeault is starting Saturday, so you don't have to talk about it anymore. Like, he sees what's going on here, and it's obvious because it's obvious to him. Montembeault's numbers are what they are. Dobes's numbers are what they are. But I think Dobes's third period in Tuesday made this decision a little easier on Marty. Like it was just like Dobes came out and he was livid after the game on Tuesday. He was so angry at himself for allowing those goals. He actually had a funny moment. Dobes is a funny cat, man, honestly. So
Yes, he is.
so he comes out. So he comes out after the game and he's like, before the game today, I Googled perfectionist. And there were like 4 definitions on Google, and none of them were good. They were all bad. There's nothing good about being a perfectionist. It's like they were all negative. None of them were positive. And he's like, I know I am one. I know I'm a perfectionist. Those last 10 minutes are really bothering me right now. I'm going to need like 30 minutes and then I'm not going to think about it anymore. Because like all he kept coming back to was how bad he was in the last 10 minutes. He really put that all on himself, which is not entirely fair. Yes, he could have been better, but I think the whole team just froze. But he actually Googled the word perfectionist and saw that the 4 definitions that the Google AI bot came up with, or that whatever definition he saw, none of them were positive. So he's trying to become less of a perfectionist.
There's something a little bit. I mean, he's not as crazy and out there as Brizgalov, but there's a tiny bit of
there's a little bit of him there. I mean, he's just very. I think I mentioned on the pod, right? Me asking him about what he said to kind of spark things with the Capitals in the playoffs. Did I bring that up?
I don't think so, no.
Anyhow, briefly, so I'm walking out of the room one day at the Bell Center. This is a morning skate of a home game, and he comes in, so he's not playing that night, whichever night that was. And I remember during the playoffs last year, at some point I said, I heard that you kind of sparked all that stuff with watch days. Like, no. Nothing. It was no big deal. It wasn't a whole lot. I'm like, okay, so there was something. He's like, yeah, there was something, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not playing tonight. I don't want to start anything. Like, I'll tell you after the series. And then that was like the last time I spoke to him, basically. That was, I guess, before game 4 that he said that. Then he played in game 5. Then we didn't talk to him, and we didn't talk to him in the postmortem. I didn't talk to him. And then the other day, I was like, hey, remember you told me that at the end of that series, you were going to tell me what happened. So now it's like months later. Now you have to tell me what happened. And he kind of goes back and forth. So basically he said, like, I was chirping like their 4th line guys a little bit, Duhaime and like those guys. And like, just kind of like, they were like, you're not even playing. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, you're barely playing too. Like kind of stuff like that or whatever. And, but then he said, and then I got personal. I was like, what? You got personal? He's like, yeah, I just, stuff I heard. Like, I heard something about one of those guys and I said something. I probably shouldn't have said it. And I was like, okay. But that took forever. Like, he just kept talking about it without really saying anything. Anyhow, it was a hilarious conversation, right? And so anyhow, yeah, speaking of the Olympics, I guess this is as good a time as any to share this. But so after practice on Thursday, again, I'm about to leave the room. They're about to close the room. Dobes comes in off the ice, is getting his equipment off. And I had read something. Corey Pronman actually sent me a link to a story in Czechia where the national team coach, the Olympic team coach, held a press availability of some sort, was discussing certain possibilities for the team. At some point, Dobes' name came up. Obviously, Dostal's already been named to the team, but there's 2 other spots. And he said, yeah, he's been doing really well. We're watching him, and we're going to keep an eye on him. So he's on their radar for the Olympic team.
Rightfully
Doesn't
so.
mean he'll make it. Yeah, I mean, the way he started the season, it would be absolutely ludicrous for him not to be on their radar. That would make no sense. So I go up to him and I say, now, if you don't know about his background, I did a story last year on him, and basically he moved to St. Louis to continue his hockey career because he couldn't get a team to take a chance on him in Czechia. And he never played for the Czech national team. He's never been on the radar of the Czech national team. And even the local Czech junior league, or even not even junior, I think it was just, minor U16 league, didn't have a spot for him. And so he had to move to St. Louis.
He was 15 years old.
Yeah.
So it's very
He
early
moved
on,
to St. Louis. Yeah. He
Yeah.
moved to his dad. Not only did he move to St. Louis, he flew to St. Louis to try out for a team coached by Lubos Bartechko
Oh,
from
yes.
yes, who actually was so Dobes's agent in Czechia was also Bartechko's agent back in the day. So that's the connection. And he says, "Well, I'm happy to look at him, but I'm not just going to take him sight unseen. Like he's going to have to come try out." So Dobes flew to St. Louis to try out for the team, makes the team, and then the rest is history, basically. But Dobes spends his summers in St. Louis. Like he doesn't really go to Czechia. So I told him that the Czech national team coach mentioned your name apparently in some article I read today. Is that have they contacted you? And he looks at me and he says, they don't even answer my emails, meaning like the Czech national program. And so it's anyhow, so we have like a back and forth. He didn't seem all that enthused about playing for Czechia, and I don't blame him. Like Czechia basically spat him out.
Yeah.
As a hockey country, they basically spat him out. And he has very little loyalty to that hockey program. Not saying to that country, but the hockey program for sure did nothing for him. In his eyes, and he's not wrong. But
It would be a little bit hypocritical to have them welcome him with open arms. Ah, we always believed in you.
yeah,
You're one of us.
exactly.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's the
but
little the
he's having
bitterness.
success. Yeah, he's having success, and when you're a hockey country and there's a
But
player from your country who's having success in the NHL, like,
but man, it's the Olympics. He cannot turn his back on
well,
the Olympics.
that's what I said. I said, dude, it's the Olympics. I mean, come on. Like, yeah, that's true. So anyhow, let's see what comes of it. But he hasn't heard from Czech anyone in the Czech hockey program.
Yeah.
He was like, I was talking to Slav, and he's already gotten all sorts of emails, and there's all this documentation and all this stuff that he's had to look at, and I haven't gotten any of that. So he's like, basically, he's like, now that you've told me that the coach mentioned my name, we now know the same amount about this. Like you and I know this exact same amount about this.
That's crazy.
I was like, okay, well, all right. Well, he said it. So if you do get an answer to one of your emails, this might be what because
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, his competition is Karel Vemelka and Dan Vladar. Basically, that's what it comes down to.
Frankly, he's better. He's been better than Dostal so far.
Yeah, but
I mean, he's not better than Dostal. That's not what I'm saying.
no.
But so far, he's been the best Czech goalie to date. And goaltending is the one position where I feel like you can take the hot guy. You can take the guy who's just playing well at the moment and forget past history and just go with that guy.
Mm-hmm. That's
one position, especially if you're a country like Czechia, where it's not like you have tons of amazing options in goal. It is a position where you can just be like, okay, well, let's just see if this guy can stay on a heater and get us into the medal rounds. Like it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Well, Vladar has been lights out since the beginning of the season in Philadelphia, and they don't have as good a blue line as Montreal. And he's got his save percentage after 6 games is at .939. He's got a 1.67 goals against average. I mean, he's been very, very good. But of course, you have to. It's going to be 3 of those 4 goalies because I don't see Mrazek or David Rittich or a guy like that stealing anybody's job.
I just find the dynamic between Dobes and his home country to be fascinating.
Yeah.
Like he had to leave his country behind. Like imagine moving to St. Louis of all places at age 15, coming out of Czechia. Like, I mean, he flew over with his dad, but then like his dad had a job at home. Like he couldn't stay there with him. Like he was put in a boarding school, barely spoke English, and made his way, and was like just constantly like worked like crazy. Like we just got any ice time he could. was passed over in the USHL draft. And then like a year after he wasn't drafted in the USHL draft, the Canadiens drafted him. Like imagine getting passed over in the USHL draft and then you get taken in the NHL draft like a year later. Like it's crazy.
Well, the Canadians love that story, that background of him, making his own way, figuring out his own path all by himself. He's a self-made goalie to a certain extent, So back in the day when they had to basically choose who they would invest in between him and Frederick Dicao.
Dicao, that's right, yeah.
The choice at some point became clear because even if it was a season where Dicao was posting fairly good numbers in Europe, I mean, Dobes was a horse, and he was a workhorse actually, and they were confident that he would keep getting better from what they were seeing at Ohio. But I mean, man, it's paying off big time right now, and I understand his resentment towards the I guess the Czech Federation, but if he's presented with the opportunity to go to the Olympics,
I'm sure he will.
Dude, yeah.
It's just that, like, his point is, anyhow, I'm sure if he were invited to the Olympics, he would go in 2 seconds flat. It would not take him any time to think about it. But it's just that his reaction to hearing that, I don't think he's holding his breath, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like, it didn't sound like he's holding his breath just because of his history with that federation. I think that he feels like it's probably unlikely, but if he keeps this up, again, like Suzuki, he could put them in a position where not inviting him would look ridiculous, and he's verging on that now. Like if he keeps going like this, he's going to force them to invite him.
Yeah,
and then it'd just be like all this awkwardness for like 2 weeks in Milan. It'd just be great.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we'll see. I mean, he's got to keep that up, and Monty at some point will fight to claim his net back.
Well,
that's part of the equation too.
It is, and I thought it was a good move, but I thought it was indicative of Marty realizing that the temperature needed to be lowered on his number one guy, and it's pretty unusual for him.
Is it a matter of Yeah, but is it really a matter of?
When's the last time Marty announced his starting goalie 2 days before a game? He doesn't even announce it the day before a game. He'll announce it on game day. He does it pretty consistently. This was unusual for him to announce it 2 days before the game that Monty's going to start on Saturday.
Yeah, but it's a no-brainer. It's been almost 10 days since he played. He last played on Thursday. No, I know, but it's probably because he could have told you that in Vancouver, or the minute that he decided that Dobes.
I think I said it on our episode on Monday that it would be. I'd be shocked if Monty didn't start on Saturday. But for Marty to come out and say it, I thought publicly, I don't think his decision is surprising. I think, and the way he did it, like he did it in response to a question that wasn't even asking him who was playing on Saturday. It was just a question on him managing the two goalies and blah, blah, blah. And
right.
He's like, well, he's playing Saturday, so we can stop talking about it now. Basically, like he very plainly said it. Like,
don't stir the pot, guys.
He's playing Saturday. Just stop. Okay. Yeah. So, but it'll be on Monty to show that the work that he's put in. Listen, that day in Seattle, when I was talking about we all had to wait for Lane Hutson to come off the ice, the guy who was still on the ice was Sam Montembeault.
Yeah.
When I left, after talking to Hutson, and after talking to Veleno, and after talking to Kapanen, when I left the building, Sam Montembeault, Josh Roy, Marc Dergazo, and Eric Raymond were still on the ice, working. They took the last of 3 buses back to the hotel that day.
Yeah. So. Since then, Delgaizo and Roy have been returned to the Rocket. The Rocket will benefit from huge help in the blue line, getting back Delgaizo. Reinbacher is going to play on Friday, and now you've got William Trudeau, who's going through waivers in order to be sent down. He missed the whole training camp with an injury. So having those 3 guys back, it's going to help their blue line tremendously. So, but they managed to keep the shots against fairly down. So kudos to the guys in Laval for tightening things up as much as they could. But those three defensemen will make a big, big difference.
Yeah, Halloween season debut for David Reinbacher in Laval. So let's hope for his sake everything's not spooky. Doesn't become a spooky Halloween for him.
It's good. All right, buddy. So on that note, thank you everybody for listening and watching us. We'll be back on Monday with our subscribers episodes. So be sure to
Hey, just a reminder.
Yeah.
Reminder: November 6th, Hurley's Irish Pub hosting our event. I was there today, or Thursday, I should say, to check out the space. Hurley's is very excited to have you all. So I would suggest that no, the event is sold out. If you go back to the link on Eventbrite, some people have been sort of canceling tickets. I'm getting notifications from time to time that people are purchasing tickets. So we would ask that if you can't go on November 6th and you have tickets to the event, please cancel them if you cannot go. If you can go, then absolutely keep them, and we can't wait to see you on Thursday. But if you can't go for whatever reason, and you know that already, please cancel the tickets so that other people can get on. And if you don't have a ticket and you'd like to go, check back on the Eventbrite page. And after talking to my buddy Rod, who's the manager at Hurley's, they will be showing the game elsewhere in the bar. So you can always take a chance to try to get in. And if you can't get in, you'll have another place to watch the game at Hurley's. So if you don't have a ticket, you can take your chances. And if you don't get in, there's a pretty good alternative viewing location in the iconic downtown Montreal bar. So,
all right.
I've spent many a night in Hurley's. When I was a younger man, I used to go there after every game, after finishing writing. I don't do that anymore, but
no,
I owe a lot to Hurley's Irish Pub. I love them.
All right. On that note, the not so iconic BasuandGodin Notebook will be back on Monday. So have a good weekend, everybody, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.